So if you've decided that Premiere Pro is going to be the tool or the editing program which you're going to use, then it's probably best for us to start getting to learn what we should do when we first launch Premiere Pro, which is exactly what we're going to do in this first lesson. This is just the bare bone basics. We're going to see what happens when we first launch Premiere Pro. We're going to talk about where everything is located. We're also going to talk about how everything works inside of Premiere Pro, just the fundamentals, and we're also going to see a few settings which we should change and just get ready so that we can dive straight into the editing in a few lessons. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm just going to launch Premiere Pro. I have it pinned over here, and as I'm launching it, you've got our loading screen, the usual, and after this thing finishes up, we're going to get into a page which is called our home page, which is where all of our projects are located. And if you take a look, that's exactly what just happened. This is the page which we're prompted with, and this will basically show you all of your recent projects and all of the projects which you have on the PC, right? So it's just going to show you a few recent projects over here. You can see some of the ones that I've got is Ultimate Editor's Videos, Alex Hormozy, How I Took a Boring Video and Turned it into a Viral Video. These are a bunch of projects that I'm personally working on, right? So to create a new project, all we got to do is just go up here and click on New Project, and if we have a project file already on the PC, we can click Open Project and go ahead and launch it, right? So I'm just going to click on New Project, and I'm just going to call it Beginner's Guide, right? I don't know how to type beginners, so we're just going to write like this, just because this is going to be a guide for you guys to understand everything. Now, there's usually a bunch of settings on the side. You don't need to worry too much about that. Just click Enter, and it's going to create the entire project for you, okay? Now, as Premiere Pro is launching up, I do have to tell you about something really quickly, okay? We got to make sure that as you guys are watching these videos, you must be practicing while you're watching them, okay? Because just watching them on your own is just gonna make you like a viewer, okay? Whereas when you actually practice them, it makes you a doer. And the main difference between them is that viewers mainly retain like maybe 40% of the information that I'm saying, whereas doers, people who are practicing all along, will retain a lot more information. So it's really best if you go ahead and launch Premiere Pro and take a look at this with me. What you're first gonna be prompted with, usually, you'll be prompted with the learning workspace, which is this workspace right here. You might be asking, what are workspaces? Well, just like manufacturing cars, right? You've got different areas inside of the factory itself that take care of different functions for the cars. You've got some for painting, some for building the car's body, some for putting it all together, some for taking care of the engine, some for scanning the entire thing. You've got different spaces that are specifically designed in a way to be efficient for a specific task. Now, the only difference is, it's the exact same thing in editing. The only difference is, if I wanted to paint my car inside of the engine building faculty of the factory, then I could do that. It's just going to be a lot harder. Okay, so that's pretty much the entire logic of how workspaces work. We've got workspaces. If you want to check out the workspaces, all you got to do is go up to Windows, click on Workspaces. You've got audio, you've got captions, you've got color, editing, and then you've got effects, essentials, and a bunch of other ones which we're not going to talk about. Now, what workspaces basically are, we're just going to go ahead and open up our editing workspace. What they basically are is a compilation or a bunch of panels all put together specifically for editing. Okay, what are panels? Panels are these little tabs that you see over here. Each panel serves a different purpose. Each one of these is kind of like a small window that takes care of a specific task. Now, the first thing we're going to do is create our workspace so that we can start editing. And before we even get into editing itself, you can see everything that's in front of you looks a bit confusing. Okay, so we're going to go into, first of all, what each workspace right now, what each panel does in our workspace, in our editing workspace. This is our editing workspace, and we're going to look at what each panel does inside of here. And then once we've looked at that, we can actually reorganize them so that we're more comfortable with them. Okay, so the first step I want you to do is go ahead and now pay attention to the video and watch this with me. Right down the center, you've got what we call the program panel. By the way, if some of these are not visible on your end, don't worry about that. We'll talk about it in just a second. Okay. The program panel is where you preview where all of the editing is happening. You do all of the editing at the bottom over here in your timeline. Your timeline, pretty much, we'll just take a look at it in just a second, shows you your video and your audio, right, in the whole sequence. And it allows you to take care of the editing over there. And the program allows you to see what the editing has happened, like what's happening with the editing. So if I made a cut and if I take a look at my program, I'm going to see where the cut is placed, right? If I added a text, I'm going to see that text in my program. Think of it this way. The timeline is the back end where I'm doing all the editing, and the program is the front end where I'm watching the video I'm editing. That's pretty much it. Okay, so that's it for the program and the timeline. The program allows us to view the edit, and the program and the timeline allows us to do the actual edit. Right off here to the left side, you're gonna have a few tabs, right? You might have a bunch more than these. If you want to, like, you know, switch between them, you could just hover over them and use your scroll wheel, or just simply click on them. Okay, now our effect controls tab, which is the obvious one that you're going to see over here. Our effect controls tab allows us to control variables of our clips and our effects inside of our timeline. So let's say I had a video inside of my timeline and I selected it. I'm going to see all of the variables over here, like the position, the rotation, the scale, and etc. And those are variables which I can change and later on keyframe and animate. Okay, so it's very important to remember that the variables are located over here. Okay, now all the way to the right side, you're going to see your project files, right? The project files is where you actually drag in all your files so you can start editing and taking care of everything. All right, and that's literally it. Over here you can create bins and you can add in different types of things, and if you right click and click on new item, you can add in a specific thing inside of your project files. Next to it, you've got your effects, which is where you find all of the effects and presets inside of Premiere Pro. And this is where you just search up for specific effects that you want, and there are even like categorized into folders if you'd like to take a look at them. And then all the way at the bottom left side, this is supposed to be a bar, kind of like this. And this thing is actually our toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and move myself so you could see it. This is our toolbar, and this is where our editing tools are located. Now let's do a few things so that we can understand things a bit better. Okay, if there are specific panels that you cannot find over here, well, let me tell you exactly where panels are actually located. All you got to do is go up to Window, and these are all the panels inside of Premiere Pro. Now you're going to understand workspaces a bit better. If I change the workspace now to color, the panels which are available change, right? So for color, logically, I need something that allows me to view my colors instead of my video, which is where we've got the Lumetri scopes and Lumetri color. But if I go back to my editing workspace, I no longer need that. I just need the things which I use to create basic edits, right? Which is where I've got these panels. Now, the panels which you should always have are the following. You should have your program, which is right here, your program monitor. You should have your effect controls, right? You should also have your source. Your source basically allows you to double click videos inside of your project files and preview them before you drag them in. So instead of dragging in a video and then changing its length or however long it is, or the segment which you want inside of it, instead all you got to do is just select it inside of the source and drag it in pre-made. So it saves you a lot of time for the future. Okay, let me go ahead and move myself back to the left side. And yeah, so as we said, you should probably have the program monitor, the effects, the effect controls. Okay, you should also have your audio meters, which is this thing on the over here on the right side, which tells us how loud our audio is based on our decibels. And you should also have the source monitor, which is the source thing we were talking about. You don't need to have text yet, but you should always have your timeline and your tools enabled. Now, if I wanted extra things, like if I wanted, for example, to take a look at my essential graphics, if I click on it, it'll either pop up somewhere over here, or it'll pop up as an undocked window, kind of like this. What's the difference, you might ask? Well, I'll tell you exactly what the difference is. The way we can change panels around and get comfortable with our workspace. Personally, I don't like this workspace. So what I usually do is I select project over here, and you'll see if I select the actual tab, I could drag it around and place it wherever I'd like. Right? And if I remove it off the screen, it becomes undocked like this. Okay, so that's not what I want to do. I want to select it and I want to put it all the way on the bottom left side over here. Guys, this is based on your personal preference. Let's go ahead and just let's put it here for now. But I think I'm just going to place it right over here. Not over there. Right here on the left side of my tools. Okay, the reason being is so that I can actually have my project files over here on the left side. Just like this. Okay, now if I need project files, they are all located over here. Next, let's make sure that our effect controls is on this side over here. This is our program, this is not our effect controls, so we're just going to scale this down a bit, and there you go, you've got your effect controls. Now we also want our program to be pretty wide, so we're just going to make this a bit spaced out, and generally this is what you want to see, right? You want to give your timeline as much space as possible, because this is where you're going to do all your editing, and you want to make sure that your project files is on the left side, your effect controls is on the left side, top left, your tools are somewhere in the middle over here, your timeline takes up the majority of the space, and your program also does the same thing, and your effects is in the top right corner over here. Okay, now And so a really quick recap to make sure that we've memorized this, what each one is responsible for. Effect controls allows you to change variables and properties of different clips which you've selected inside of your timeline. The program allows you to watch your edit or watch the video which you are editing. The timeline allows you to actually create the edit. The effects allow you to choose between effects and take a look at your presets and etc. And your project files is where all of your project files are located. Now, if there are certain tabs that you don't want there, like over here, for example, I like having my source and I like having my effect controls, but I don't need my text. All I gotta do is right click and close panel. So this is your first action step and the first thing which you should do. Okay, go through and organize your workspace the way you're gonna like it to be. I personally like to have my effect controls in the top right and my project files on the bottom left, and I like to have the program monitor in the center. Okay, and obviously this is going to change for short form content, but for now let's go ahead and make this and get comfortable with it, resize it. Make sure you remove all of the panels which you don't want, because just in case you wanted them, you can always open them under the Windows tab. All right, so what you've just learned is what workspaces are, where the panels are located, and how everything works. Okay, few minor things. These tools are very important, right? This is its own section. There are also tools that toggle over here, like your snap and your whatever that is, your linked selection and your snap. Those are two very important ones, which are kind of settings that allow you to affect things inside of your timeline, which we will take a look at in just future episodes. And you should also remember that all of these also have different settings. Okay, so like my program monitor, for example, I can maybe zoom out if I want to. I've got a bunch of toolbars over here, things that I can add on as well. And these are just up to you if you want to look into them, but we don't actually need them right now. We will be discovering them as we go with editing. Okay, so again, your first step, organize everything, make sure everything looks good to you. And once you've done that, we're not done yet, go up to Window, Workspace, and go down to Save as New Workspace. This will basically allow you to save this outline, or the way that everything looks like now, as your brand new workspace. And I would call this something like horizontal editing, right? Something like that. Horizontal editing. This is a workspace that I could use if I want to edit horizontally. So you'll see if I change to a different workspace now, and then let's say I'm in my color workspace and I want to actually go back to edit horizontally, all I got to do is click on this and it's going to go back to the exact same way we saved it. That's very nice, right? Okay, once we're done with workspaces and we're done with making everything look really nice, let's get straight into the settings which we got to change when you first launch Premiere Pro. So far you understand that when you first launch it, you've got a page where all of your project files are located, and then we understood all of our workspace and our placement of the different panels. Now all we got to do is go up to Edit, and here we've got a bunch of things that we can change once we start importing videos and etc., which we're going to take a look at in our second episode. If we go all the way down to Preferences and go to General, the preferences are kind of like your settings, okay? And they allow you to just change everything over here. This is kind of like the settings on your phone and etc. And you've got a lot of different things which we're going to go through really quickly. General just gives you like general things that have to do with the actual program itself. The appearance gives you kind of things that you can control about the looks, like the brightness of my Premiere Pro and etc. Audio gives you audio settings. The first thing you should do is make sure that play audio while scrubbing over here is checked. This allows you to hear the audio while you're scrubbing through your video in the timeline. It's very, very important. Next up, you got audio hardware in case you're recording inside of Premiere Pro or if you're recording in Premiere Pro, you want to kind of select your mic over here. You've got autosave. This is your second thing that you should do. So first off, make sure your play audio while scrubbing is turned on. Second thing, make sure your autosave features are turned on. Make sure it autosaves at least every 5 minutes. This is really, really useful. And then this collaboration is not really important. Your color is not really important. None of these are important. The graphics is very important, right? You want to make sure everything is set up to the way you'd like it. And this is just some future stuff you'll understand later on. But in case you have missing fonts, you want to make sure your default font here is the one that you like to use. I'll set mine as Rubik because that's the one that I like. And you probably won't have it because you don't have that font downloaded, okay? Next up, you've got labels. I would leave these as they are. Media, I would also pretty much leave this as they are. There's not really anything that you have to enable here besides this H.264/HVAC, hardware acceleration decoding. This is very, very important so that you allow your PC to basically render things and encode things a lot faster when you're editing. All right, your media cache is where your cache files are stored, which are files that you don't really need. And your memory, this is our third or fourth important thing, to make sure you allocate enough memory for your Premiere Pro. Now, how much memory should you allocate? I would say exactly 75%. Okay, I've got 32 gigs of RAM, so I've allocated pretty much 28 of them to Premiere Pro. I would always allocate 75%. If you got 16 gigs of RAM, I would allocate maybe 13 or 12 gigs to Premiere Pro. If you've got 8 gigs of RAM, rest in peace. And yeah, if you've got more than that, always use 75% of your RAM for Premiere Pro. Okay, when it comes to playback, make sure you set these to pre-roll 3 seconds, pre-roll 2 seconds. When it comes to your timeline, make sure you set your video transition default duration to 30 frames and set these just as you see them right over here. Maybe even pause the course, go ahead and set these. What these basically are when you drag in an image, how long should it naturally be? And these are very important so that you don't have any problems in the future. Trim and transcription are not really too useful. And once you finished it up, just click OK, and there you go. Okay, I'd like to teach you one more shortcut before we move on, and it is Control S. This allows you to save the project. That's it. It's going to be auto-saving every 5 minutes, but Premiere Pro is actually very known to constantly crash. So it's very important to save a lot so that just in case it crashes, you can go back to a recent save. All right. So thanks a lot for watching. That's everything I've got to cover in this video. Let's go ahead and move on to learning how we can create sequences and get straight into editing. So if you finished this, go ahead and plan out your workspace and the way the panels are supposed to be and get straight into sequences, which is in our next episode right now. See ya.